Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Pancham Gupta. Thanks for being on the show, Pancham.
Thanks for having me, Whitney. I'm so great and honored to be on your show. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you on the show. I know you and I have met at numerous conferences, talked numerous times, and it's been great to see your success and even you leaving the full-time job and now doing this full-time. And I hope we get into that a little bit because I know a lot of people that are listening are hoping to do that exact same thing. And so I'm really looking forward to this. But a little about Pancham. He's a full-time multifamily syndicator with $32 million under management. He's a host of the Gold Collar Investor podcast, which helps high-paid professionals learn about investing outside of Wall Street and learn personal finance. He graduated from Carnegie Mellon University and spent 14 years in the fintech industry in New York City. So, Pancham, thank you again for your time being on the show. Give the listeners a little more about your background, and listen. I'd love to hear a little more about how you quit your job, because I know that's what a lot of the listeners are dreaming about.
Oh, sure. Happy to. So I came to the US in 2003 for my master's degree in computer science. And, my idea at the time was that I would come here, get my master's, get some work experience, and go back to India. And that's where I am from. And, start something of my own over there. So in 2011, we decided that we are not going back. There were a bunch of things happened in 2009. We almost sold everything. And, me and my wife found out that we're expecting our first baby. And we said,
that changes things.
It does, So we're like, okay, you know what? Maybe after we have our firstborn, maybe we'll do that later. So we bought entire furniture, all those stuff back. And 2011-12, we decided we're not going back. And that's when I actually started investing in real estate. I bought 2 single-family houses on where I live, rental properties, before I bought my own house. And I got addicted to this so much that it slowly became, I started as a hobby, it became addiction at some point. And when it turned into passion, I don't even know. I was literally spending day, night, just thinking about real estate, analyzing deals, going to conferences, being on Bigger Pockets back then, a lot more than what, I want to be even now, but I just don't have the time. But yeah, so, fast forward 5 years, I ended up buying properties in 5 different states, out of state. And they were all small, single family, duplexes, triplexes, all of these properties. And back in 2015 or 16, I realized that, this is not scalable. It was taking too much of my time. I was working full time. That was my main focus. And I was, I'm like, there has to be a better way. And that's when I found syndication. And we did our very first syndicated deal in 2017. And so far we have done 4 of them. And that's where we are right now.
Wow. So early on, when you were buying those other properties out of state, like the commercial real estate business or syndication was not really in your thought process at that time. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. So at that time, the thought was that I'll keep buying these small single family duplexes, triplexes, all these properties, and, building my portfolio. But, it felt like a lot of work. And also I started liking this business so much. Before, it was more like investments. And later on, it became like, oh, you know what? I want to do this full time. This is something it really, really excites me. And, I'm helping people out as well, by, investing their capital and all that. And I love this stuff. So there was a transition point where I was like, it's not scalable. And also I want to pursue this as my full-time career at some point. So let me start looking into something else other than just buying these. And trust me, this strategy itself was great. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just that how much time you want to spend on it, and what are your goals? Is it going to meet your goals or achieve your goals?
So many, go to college, they get the degree just like you did. I mean, and then, they're in that career for a while, and then it's like, wait a minute, there's this thing over here in the real estate that I could do that I think I would like a lot better. They pursue that. But not only that, I mean, you moved here just for that degree. And you didn't just move from like Georgia. I mean, you moved from India. I mean, you moved a long ways to get that degree, and to pursue that career, and which you did successfully. But then you changed that path, and I wonder, did you receive any pushback, maybe from family or friends, saying, "Wait a minute, Pancham, we've spent all this time and money. We've been, moved to the U.S. Maybe you shouldn't pursue this real estate thing. You need to stay focused over here." Did you receive any pushback like that?
Oh my God. Yeah. Thanks for asking that question. I'll tell you, in 2011-12, that's when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, around that time. And that really changed my mindset completely. And when I was deciding on quitting my job, my parents, my wife, my friends, every single one of them were against it, because I had a very high paying job, like in New York City. And all the negative thoughts, like, okay, what would happen if you quit? What about the health insurance? What about the benefits? What about 401k? And my parents, my wife, all of these guys were against it. And, that also kind of brought me down from the mindset point of view, So it was very hard for me to quit, because they were right, in a sense, that this is an extremely high paying job and you're trying to go into something which we don't even have remotely close passive income. And how are you going to do that? So it was very, very hard. And you know what I actually realized, and I was talking to myself a lot about this, I realized that I'm not going to be able to do this alone. I need to condition my mindset and come out of this thing, so that, I am so confident in leaving my job and, focused on what I want to do versus, what I'm doing so far. So I actually hired a mindset coach just to help me quit. And he helped me, quit this. And it's a funny story. So the day I made that decision, I go to my wife and I tell her, you know what? I'm going to hire a coach to help me quit. She's like, what? I'm like, to help me quit. She's like, oh, if you want to quit, just go quit. Why you have to spend money to actually go, and how to not make money, like spend money to hire someone to how to not make money, like how to quit. And I was like, you know what? You make it sound so simple, but it's actually very hard for me as well to quit, to be honest with you. So no, yeah, I actually did that. I got external help, and, long story short, now my family, my wife, everyone is on board. I told them, give me 2 to 3 years of time frame. I'll make it happen. So
nice. So, okay. So then you created a time frame. You said 2 to 3 years. How did you stick to that? Were you able to do it in that amount of time?
No. So what I'm saying is that when I quit, which was very recently in 2019, July 3rd was my last day at work. So July 4th, it happens to be the Independence Day, was my first day without the job. So what I told them was, give me 2 to 3 years from now to make it happen, and I'll make it happen. Right. And what I did, I saved up enough to make sure that I can survive for 2 to 3 years without worrying about, expenses.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good for you. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, because I mean, I've had it. I know lots of other people that are listening have had those same doubts, and they probably haven't even thought about like hiring a mindset coach like you did, and which could be so useful depending on where you're at in your journey of leaving your job. So that's awesome, because there's so many things, until you've entered the entrepreneurial world full time, there's a lot of things that you just don't think about, right? Or we kind of take for granted to some extent, right? But then too, I've seen so many people, it's like once they leave their job, it's like, then there's just no ceiling, right? Then they can devote so much more time to their business, and things just really take off. And somebody told me one time, it's like, Whitney, what's the worst that could happen? Even if you
Exactly.
lost everything, let's say you tried and you lost everything, you most likely you're still going to have a family member that would take you in, and you're still going to have a roof over your head and a food, food to eat, you know?
Mm, right. Yeah, you don't think about those things. It's actually, very, very rewarding when you get to spend time the way you want it. I have to make one, I recently quit, so I have to tell you one thing, that you have to be extremely disciplined as well, because day goes like this, that you have to be extremely disciplined with your time. And now, before you had someone else telling you what to do, now you have to figure out what to do, and you also do not have any money coming in. And you have to figure out all of those things out. So it's not easy. It can be drain on your mindset. So you really have to be strong from inside, and you really need to know your why. That will drive you, and I think that's very, very important.
So tell me, I guess, give us a little bit on that, or elaborate on how you're disciplined with your time, like you were talking about.
So I am trying to get better at this even now. So what I'm trying to do is really work on the high value items, right? Spending the time on the things that will actually bring me the most ROI. That ROI could be more subjective, or it could be very objective. So let me give you an example of both. So very objective would be, let's say I am recording a podcast, right? Before, I was editing all my podcasts myself, right? But it's a $40 an hour job. So is it well worth spent my time to do editing? I think not, right? I can hire much more experienced people who can do it for $40 an hour for me to help edit the podcast, for example. And I will get the same result, maybe much better than what I would do. But yes, I would have to spend that time, that money to do it. So that's very objective outcome. ROI, you cannot measure, but you know that expenses or investment is $40 an hour. And you can spend that time, that $200 per hour time or $300 per hour time, however you value your time, on the stuff that is important. So that's very objective. Then the other thing is, the subjective time would be, working on your health, or spending time with kids, playing with them, right? So that you cannot put an ROI on. It's just a lifetime value, or the gold time, I call it, that I spend. So these are the two things that I try to focus on. And trust me, I'm trying to get better at this, given that I don't even have full-time job. My wife takes care of our two young kids full time at home. So it's all of us are at home in a way, and it's very hard to make sure that I'm spending that time on the things that are bringing me the most ROI. And it can be very difficult sometimes to figure out what's the best ROI, because you're just thinking. The most time you're spending is on actually thinking.
Mm. Wow. No, I appreciate you elaborating on that, because how we spend our time is so important. And especially when, like you said, the day can go by so fast, right? I mean, before you know it, you spent 3 hours catching up on email or reading something that's really not that important, and half your day's gone. And so it's
Exactly.
important, that you know where you're spending your time. And
And
so,
even
let's
worse,
talk. Go ahead.
No, even worse is Facebook or social media. You go on there and you go this rabbit hole, and you don't even know, like, it's 20 minutes gone by and you're on that. Sorry
For
to interrupt
sure.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about how you got into your first syndication, though. So I think you were still working, I think, at that time, but tell me how that happened. What was the keys to getting to that first syndication?
So yeah, we bought our first deal in Charlotte. We actually have sold that now, and we have completed that cycle fully. That one was a 44 units deal in very close to downtown Charlotte, and it was in an up and coming area. It was a $2 million deal. We actually sold it for $3 million very recently, 3-4 months ago. And the reason, the way I got into that deal was like, going and building relationships with brokers and trying to be on their email list, as all these brokers have their list that you can subscribe to, and going there and meeting them. So this deal came as one of the emails on their email list, as an off-market deal. And it's funny that when this deal came around, we were looking around in that area and we were not able to get into any best and final rounds at the time. We were always getting outbid. And in this particular deal, exact same thing happened. It was around January timeframe, January or February timeframe, where we put in an offer for, they were asking for 1.75 million. We said 1.5. They came back with 1.7. We said 1.7. They came back with 2 million. Yes, exactly. We were like that. What? So we kind of dropped it. They gave out reasoning on why that's the case and how it would be better in 3 months time frame. We actually dropped the idea, but we had this deal in back of our mind, and we reached back out in 3 months time frame. It seemed like they had done all the things they said they would do. So 2 million made sense, and we actually got the deal. And we had to raise about $781,000 for this particular deal to implement our business plan and to close and all that stuff. So that was our very first raise, that big raise that we did. And it's me and my partner who did it together. It was not easy. We actually put a lot of our own money in to make sure that the investors see that we are putting a lot more than actually required in the deal, to make sure that we are fully vested in the deal. So we were able to raise 781 from our friends and family. And since we were working full time, I did not want to go out and blast out the deal or talk to as many co-workers, because we were trying to keep it low at work. So there were not colleagues. None of these colleagues were, other than one or two, were in the part of the deal.
One thing that has made me successful is something that most people don't think of. It's the way that I've branded myself online. If you want to brand yourself to raise more capital, then I suggest working with my friend Adam Adams. So go ahead, scroll down, and find the link in the show notes. Yeah, I remember you and I having numerous conversations about that, because when you were still in the job, you had to be careful about, the real estate business, or, blasting out a podcast or anything like that. And obviously now that you've left the JOB, you can do that. But that would be difficult. I've met other people that are in the same boat, where they have a job where it's like, if their employer knew that they had some other business on the side, they're probably going to let them go. And so,
right,
it's interesting. You were able to navigate that, and now able to leave your job, and you're able to get that first deal done, the 44 units. And tell me about, though, building your team. I know that there's a team of you. Tell me about how you built this team so you could go on and do more deals now as well.
Sure. So as I always say, and I'm sure you've talked about it multiple times, real estate syndication and in real estate in general is a team sport, right? So team is extremely, extremely important. I consider few people very, very internal part of the team, one, the CPA, really, really important. Second, real estate attorney who does a transaction. Third, a syndication attorney. Fourth, your business partner. Obviously, I have one partner, and then your investors. All of these are part of the team. And how I build this team, I would say, let me start with the attorneys. And this is, over the time, working with different attorneys. We have used multiple syndication attorneys, but at this point we have one we feel very comfortable with, and we're going to use him or her going forward. And then we have our transaction attorney who works in North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia. We use him all the time, and we're very, very comfortable with him. And we've built this relationship over time with them. And now they know how we work. We know how they work. So it's like this relationship. I send them an email. I get an answer within 10 minutes or so. Any questions they will answer and all that. So that's one side. And then the other side is, choosing my own business partner. So I'm fortunate enough, my business partner and I, we knew each other for 14 or 12 years. Now since 2007, we were colleagues, and he and I, even though we have a same engineering background, but we have very, very complementary skills. So that actually, made a good partnership, and trust was there. and the complementary skills were there, and the passion for real estate was there, which is very, very same among both of us. So we felt that it's so that's how I decided on being partners with him. So that's the second side, and the third side is the investors, and that part is a very long term and always evolving thing, where you have to take care of your investors. You really have to find what they want, right? You have to nurture it as you are a farmer. You have to sow these seeds, and sometimes it takes long time before you even see the fruit, just like farmer versus a hunter who goes out and hunts for the day and is done. So yeah, I have had investors where I've been talking to them for 3 years now, and they have not invested. It's only now that I've quit my full-time job, they want to invest. So
why do you think that is? Why the change after quitting your job?
no, because now they see that what I have been telling them for last 3 years, I've actually followed through and I've done it. Right. And, I've always told them, this is something that I really, really want to do. And yeah, and all of these guys are actually very high income earners, high net worth individuals. And a lot of people are asking them for money, right? And they're not going to just open their wallet and give you the money. They have to see if the person who is saying something that they will do, whether they have done it, right? So I feel me quitting the job actually has helped in that respect, where all these people who were either on the fence or they were thinking has now come out and said they will invest in our next deal. So
Nice.
I don't know if I answered your question, long-winded answer.
No, I just wondered, what the mindset shift was in the investor, about you quitting your job to now they want to invest. But like you said, they see that it's worked for you, and probably another level of commitment there too, now that you're doing this full time.
Exactly.
As opposed to something you're doing on the side.
No, that's absolutely right. In our last deal, which was a $19 million deal, we had a $7 million raise. And I actually did not want to do that deal myself if I wasn't in it full time, because I don't want to take $7 million of investor money and be working on this W-2 job. It just didn't feel right. So yeah, it's really important.
So Pancham, what's been the hardest part of the syndication journey for you?
The hardest part, I think I would say for me, the hardest part is finding the deals. Really finding the deals, number one. And number two, sticking with the business plan. We get sticking with the criteria. We get so many deals, these shiny objects, so to speak, come our way that we could actually do them, and they might be profitable too. But really sticking to your core criteria is really important, and we have to say no more than we say yes. And I think that is very hard to do. We had a deal in.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I'll give you an example. We had a deal, really good deal in Kansas. We feel, that was came our way. I think it was more than 150 units, Kansas City. We actually passed on that deal, and it was very hard to do that because Kansas City was not one of our markets. So, yeah.
You stuck to your criteria. Yeah. So, but tell me, you said finding deals has been the hardest, and I think there's many listeners who would agree with that statement. But what's a way that you all have overcome that or to find deals now?
No, so it's a constant work in progress. I don't think I have one answer to that. We have been just hitting the pavement real hard, really traveling a lot, meeting with the brokers, building relationships with the brokers. We have 6 markets that we focus in. We are really trying to be active in those markets and just hitting the pavement, like really nothing, something that we are doing special. It's just putting in the hard work that is needed to make sure that if there is a deal, we get to see it at least, if not win it. Yeah.
And how are you prepared for this potential downturn that everybody's talking about?
So for that's a good question. We talk about it all the time. And for that, that's where we came up with our criteria, that what we are going to be focused on, and we're sticking with it. We are not shying away from that. And we feel that if we stick with our criteria, we would be okay with the downturn. And our criteria is, I can give a brief synopsis if you want.
Sure.
Yeah.
Please.
So we have our 6 markets, which are, where the jobs are growing. We are looking in 3 markets in Florida: Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando, Atlanta in Georgia, and Raleigh and Charlotte within North Carolina. So these are the only markets we are looking at. And, for all those good reasons: population, job diversity, overall jobs, millennials are moving in, builders are developing, all that stuff. So we feel when the downturn comes, these markets will be the last one to see the impact and the first ones to come out of it. And so market is one. And then the asset quality itself, we have criteria around that. We are not looking anything before 1985 going forward, and looking at the value add component and making sure there is a value add by looking at the proper rental comps and doing the survey, talking to the tax assessor. That's one thing that is really, really, really important. I feel that these real estate prices have gone up so much. We were talking to this tax assessor guy in Jacksonville and also in Raleigh. The guy said that they are going to increase the taxes on apartments the most. And it was the same sentiment across different markets, different tax assessors, that multifamily is going to be the highest hit with the taxes in the next assessment cycle. So it is extremely important, and I want to stress this to the listeners, that this is one expense that you cannot reduce. It's extremely hard to reduce. You can fight it, challenge it, and all that, but so you have to make sure when you're buying a deal, if it is at a premium, you have to know down to the numbers, to the pennies, what your taxes are going to be. So yeah, I digress there, but yeah, so those are the things we try to look at and make sure that we are focused on that criteria, and we think it will be fine with the downturn, and we make sure we raise enough capital that we can weather that storm if it hits us.
No, I appreciate you elaborating there. Yeah, the taxes are definitely something that need to be hammered home, that people are looking at and asking questions about. When is it going to be reassessed? Different states and counties do it differently, and so you have to know specifically in your area, when is that reassessed? It may be every year, it may be every 2 years or 3 years, or it could be very different and catch you by surprise if you're not familiar with that market.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what's a way that you have recently improved your business that we could apply to ours?
Yeah. So multiple things. One, we are trying to look at our business, all what is needed within the business. So one is the investor management side of things, right? Where we have a lot of people who, like a lot of investors who ask questions, and we send out these updates. So we've been doing all of this little manually, so to speak. What we are doing now is we are actually investing in an investor management portal to kind of help us with the raise, and also after the deal is closed with the overall ongoing communication, so that it's more like 401k account that people have, they're familiar with. When they log in, they can see exactly how many where they have invested. Same way here, they will be able to see what deals they have invested in, how much returns they've gotten, and all that stuff. So we are improving our business. We are trying systematizing that on the investor management side. Then on the finding the deal side of things, we are trying to systematize it again by trying to create a process around it, having a person helping us. We are not there yet, but this is something that we're working on to help us with underwriting. I mean, I spent so much time, I can't even tell you, underwriting these deals, and 90% of them don't even pan out. They don't even go the first, filter of after you underwrite. And so, yeah, we're trying to outsource that. And then third, I would say talking to the new investors. That's something that we feel that we cannot really outsource. You have to do that yourself, at least in the beginning. So that's where we're spending most time, really making sure we can talk to the new investors and explain them and spend time with them and build that relationship that is needed by SEC as well, which they call pre-existing relationship.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Persistence. Being very persistent on your goals and what you want.
and tell us how you like to give back.
So there are two ways that I like to give back. One is, I have raised capital money for this society called LLS, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. My 3 aunts have had cancer, and I try to raise money for them. I did events with them in the past to raise money for them. So that's one. And second, what I do is I'm trying to now teach people who are high paid professionals on personal finance, and these especially software engineers, people who are like me, who are invested. Most of their money is coming from Wall Street, and their net worth is also tied to Wall Street, and in many cases to one stock. So I started this podcast, The Gold Collar Investor, to teach them about personal finance. So these are the two things I'm trying to do.
Nice. And Pancham, tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So my email is they can email me at P as in Paul at thegoldcollarinvestor.com. I repeat, P at thegoldcollarinvestor.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, and they can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by Life Bridge Capital. Life Bridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. Life Bridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.